Hi, this is Mrs. Compton. We're going to talk about introducing quotations in your research paper today. So when you're writing a paper, obviously you need to include direct quotations. I'm asking you for this paper to have at least 2 direct quotations. Often what I find freshmen doing is just plopping the direct quotation in without really introducing it. And it's okay. I'd rather have you have the direct quote than not introduce it. But ideally, you want to have a little introduction before you pull in that direct quote. So I do have a useful resource for you. This is on Blackboard. I'm going to actually just put the PowerPoint without my talking over it so that you can access the link. This resource gives you some different ideas for what you can use as wording to introduce a quote. So on top they have some information about how much you quote, and you can kind of read through this if you find it interesting. It does talk about paraphrasing and summarizing, putting things into your own words, and why it's important, of course, to identify your sources. But here's the interesting part where they talk about how to introduce a short quotation. So you should have some short direct quotes, at least 2 within your paper. So they're using the example of Hannah Arendt, who's a philosopher, and they're using a direct quote from her, which is right here. And you'll see that they have, the ancient Greeks never really saw a need to justify wars that were waged outside the walls of the city-state. Now they're going to have their evidence, as Hannah Arendt points out in On Revolution, and then they have the direct quote. The introduction to the quote is right here, as Hannah Arendt points out in On Revolution. So it just introduces who is giving the quote. Because they have Hannah Arendt's name here, they only have to have the page number in the parenthetical citation instead of having Arendt space 12. So that's why the citation looks a little bit different. So introducing that quote, instead of just saying, the ancient Greeks never saw a need to justify wars that were waged outside the walls of the city-state, we must turn to Roman antiquity to find the first justification. That would be a little strange to just plop the direct quote in there. So we identify and introduce the quote first. So I want you to take a look at your quotations and try to introduce them. So they have some other examples. Aren't writes that, and all of these are ways to introduce your quote. They have some verbs and phrases that can help you. Argues, writes, points out, suggests, explains. So we go back to the PowerPoint. Let's go back here. You could say things like, in the words of so-and-so, and then have your direct quote. Or according to so-and-so, I just have an X here, and then have your direct quote. In so-and-so's view, or for example, according to Foreign Affairs, and then have your direct quote. Foreign Affairs would be a magazine, so that'd be a journal article. Of course, you can also use this phrasing for a paraphrase too. Paraphrasing, because it's in your own words, doesn't necessarily have to have an introduction, but a quote should have some kind of introduction. So please check out this website to give you some different verbiage that you can use, but these are the really common ways. In the words of, according to, in so-and-so's views. I use according to quite a bit in my writing. That's especially true for research papers. So if you need some help, let me know, but hopefully this resource will give you a way to introduce your direct quotes. I would like to see them introduced when we look at your research paper. All right, good luck in your writing.